The golden lights of the Hotel del Coronado reflected in Isabel Miller's navy blue silk dress, but nothing could illuminate the emptiness she felt inside. At 20, she already carried the weight of being the heiress to one of America's largest luxury fashion empires. Her clear blue eyes, so admired by many, seemed like dull crystals on that cold July night in Los Angeles. The Fashion for Charity benefit event had ended just a few minutes ago, and Isabel walked through the streets of downtown, her high heels echoing on the uneven pavement of a Hollywood boulevard. She had dismissed her driver. She needed air, silence, something to remind her she was still alive. That's when she heard it. A deep, melodious male voice sang a song she had never heard before. The words seemed to pour directly from the soul of the singer, accompanied by the gentle strumming of a guitar with strings worn by time. Oh, how I wish I had the strength of the wind to blow away all this pain. Isabel stopped, her legs trembled, and she had to lean against the cold wall of an old building. There was something in that song that touched a part of herself she thought had long been dead. She followed the sound until she found a man sitting on the steps of the St. Andrew's Church in Pasadena. He seemed to be about 33, with light brown hair slightly disheveled by the wind, fair skin marked by time and the elements. But it was his blue eyes, as intense as hers, that made her forget to breathe for a moment. Michael Smith stopped playing when he noticed someone watching him. He looked up and met the eyes of the young woman standing a few feet away. She looked like an apparition in the dark night, elegant, fragile, and lost all at once. "Good evening," he said, his voice seemingly molded by kindness. "Sorry if the music bothered you." Isabel shook her head quickly. "No, it didn't bother me, it's just—" "Are those your lyrics?" Michael smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "Yes. Sometimes words just need to come out, you know, as if they have a life of their own." "I understand," she murmured, surprised by her own sincerity. They remained silent for a few moments, two strangers united by a moment of pure truth amidst the chaos of the big city. "I'm Isabel," she said finally. "Michael," he replied, carefully putting his guitar into a worn case. She wanted to say something more, but the words seemed to have fled. How could she explain that for the first time in years? She felt she had found something real. How could she say that her entire life was a rehearsed performance, where every gesture, every word, every breath was calculated to maintain a perfect image? Will you be here tomorrow?" she asked, feeling the blood rush to her pale cheeks. Michael watched her carefully, as if trying to decipher a mystery. "Probably. This place has become my refuge." Isabel nodded, and without quite knowing why, extended her hand. Michael hesitated for a moment before touching it briefly. The contact was electric, as if two souls recognized each other after a long separation. "See you tomorrow then," she said, already turning to leave. "See you tomorrow, Isabel." As she walked back to her apartment in Santa Monica, Isabel felt her heart pounding. There was something about that man that both haunted and calmed her. For the first time in a long time, she had something to look forward to the next day. Michael stood on the steps, watching her silhouette disappear into the darkness. He had recognized the expensive dress, the discreet but valuable jewelry, the posture of someone who had grown up with privilege. But he had also seen the loneliness in her eyes, the same loneliness he carried like a shadow. Can two lost people find each other? Have you ever felt like your life was a perfect yet empty performance? Like this story is touching your heart, and in the comments, tell us what city you're joining us from, and what will happen at their next meeting. A revelation about Michael's past will change everything. Isabel woke up that Saturday morning with a strange feeling in her chest. It was anticipation mixed with a nervousness she hadn't felt since adolescence. She put on light jeans and a white cotton t-shirt, deliberately simple, very different from the sophisticated outfits she wore to social events. Her mother, Christina Miller, found her having breakfast in the family penthouse kitchen in Beverly Hills. "Honey, did you forget we have lunch at the Andersons' house today? Richard will be there," Christina said, observing her daughter carefully. Richard Anderson, 28, heir to a banking family, was the suitor her mother considered perfect for Isabel. Neatly combed blonde hair, brown eyes, always impeccably dressed, and with a smile that seemed rehearsed. "Mom, I need to go out. There's something I need to do," Isabel replied, avoiding her mother's gaze. "What could be more important than maintaining our social engagements?" Isabel didn't answer. How to explain that there was something more important than appearances? How to tell her about Michael without sounding completely crazy? 2 hours later, she was back at Hugh St. Andrew's Church. Michael was there, as he had promised, but this time he wasn't alone. 3 homeless children, 2 boys and a girl, were sitting around him, listening attentively as he read aloud from a worn book. And then the little prince understood that he had found something very rare. "A true friend," Michael read, his voice bringing the words of Saint-Exupéry to life. Isabel approached silently, not wanting to interrupt. She watched how the children's eyes sparkled with the narrative, how Michael gently gestured to add more emotion to the story. When he finished the chapter, the children applauded. "Uncle Michael, will you read more tomorrow?" asked the girl, who couldn't have been more than 8. "Of course, Lucy. Tomorrow we'll find out what happens when the little prince meets the fox." It was then that he noticed Isabel standing there observing the scene. Their eyes met, and again she felt that strange chill. "Kids, this is Isabel," Michael said. "Isabel, these are my friends, John, 10 years old, Peter, 9, and Lucy, 8. "Hi, Auntie," John said, smiling with a few missing teeth. "Hello," she replied, kneeling to be at their height. "Do you like Uncle Michael's stories? He tells the best." "Stories in the world," exclaimed Peter, "and he knows a lot. Did you know he used to be a teacher?" Isabel looked at Michael, surprised. "A teacher?" He nodded, a little embarrassed. "Literature, at a public school in San Diego, a long time ago." "Why did you stop?" she asked, genuinely curious. Michael's eyes darkened for a moment. "It's a long story." "Uncle Michael was sad when Aunt Clara left," Lucy said innocently. "But we like him the way he is now." Michael took a deep breath, clearly uncomfortable with the turn of the conversation. "Kids, how about you go get that chocolate chip cookie Mr. Johnson from the bakery saved for you?" The children ran off, leaving Isabel and Michael alone. "Clara was your wife?" she asked softly. "She was," he replied, looking at his own hands. "She died 3 years ago. Breast cancer. After that, well, I kind of lost my way." Isabel's heart ached. "I'm so sorry. She was a teacher too. Kindergarten, she loved children. We used to say that one day we'd have our own—" His voice trailed off for a moment. "When she left, I lost not just my wife, but my dreams, my plans, my identity. I couldn't teach anymore. I couldn't live in that house full of memories. I ended up here. And now?" Michael smiled sadly. "Now I try every day to find a reason to keep going. Sometimes it's these kids. Sometimes it's a song that needs to be sung. Yesterday it was you." The silence that followed was charged with unspoken emotions. Isabel felt as if she was seeing Michael for the first time, not just a homeless man, but a human being with a story of love and loss as profound as any drama she had ever imagined. Can I tell you something too?" she asked. Michael nodded, encouraging her. "My whole life has been planned by other people. Where to study, what to major in, who to marry, how to dress, even how to smile. I'm an heiress, Michael. My family has a fashion company worth millions, but I've never felt as poor as I did last night before I heard you sing. And today I feel alive for the first time in a long time." They looked into each other's eyes, and Isabel realized she was holding her breath. Something was happening between them, something that went beyond the circumstances that separated them. "Isabel," Michael said, his voice lower, "you know we're from very different worlds, right?" "I know," she replied. "But does that matter?" Before he could answer, the children ran back, each carrying a piece of chocolate chip cookie. "Aunt Isabel, do you want a piece?" Lucy offered. "Of course," she said, genuinely smiling for the first time in weeks. They spent the entire afternoon together. Michael told more stories, Isabel played with the children, and little by little, the two began to discover things about each other. She discovered that he had a vast knowledge of literature, that he had played guitar since he was 15, that he had studied at a public university on a scholarship. He discovered that she painted watercolors in her spare time, that she loved hot dogs from the street fair, that she dreamed of traveling across the US, experiencing local cultures. When the sun began to set, Isabel realized she had to go. "Michael," she said, hesitant, I'd like to see you again." "I'd like that too," he replied. "But Isabel, I have nothing to offer. No home, no money, no certain future." "You have something I've never had," she said, moving a little closer. "What?" "Truth. And can true love be born between two such wounded hearts? Have you ever fallen in love with someone who seemed impossible? Comment here what city you're watching us from, and get ready. In the next chapter, Isabel will make a decision that will change everything, but a discovery about Michael's past could destroy any chance of happiness. For an entire week, Isabel found excuses to escape family and social commitments. Every day, at 4 in the afternoon, she was at St. Andrew's Church. Sometimes Michael was with the children, other times he was alone, reading or playing guitar. It didn't matter. She always stayed. That Thursday, he was teaching John some basic guitar chords when she arrived. "Aunt Isabel!" Lucy shouted, running to hug her. "Look, John is learning music." "How wonderful," Isabel said, genuinely impressed to see how patient Michael was with the boy. "Finger position, John. That's it, just like that. Now try playing slowly," Michael instructed, guiding the boy's small hands. Isabel sat on the church steps, observing the scene. There was something mesmerizing about the way Michael taught, with affection, infinite patience, and a smile that lit up his entire face. It was impossible to believe that this same man had lost everything and lived on the streets for 3 years. "Uncle Michael," Peter said, pulling his shirt, "does Aunt Isabel know how to play anything?" "I don't know," Michael replied, looking at her with curiosity. "Do you?" Isabel blushed. "A little piano. Mum thought it would be elegant for a young lady from a good family." "Do you sing too?" Lucy asked, excited. Well, not much." "Come on, just a little bit," Michael insisted, handing her the guitar. With flushed cheeks, Isabel took the instrument. Her hands, accustomed to piano keys, hesitated for a moment on the guitar strings. Then, surprising everyone, including herself, she began to play and softly sing a song she had learned in childhood. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky." The children laughed and clapped, asking for more. But it was Michael's gaze that made Isabel's heart race. There was something there, admiration, tenderness, and something deeper she couldn't name. "You have a beautiful voice," he said when she finished. "Thank you," she murmured, returning the guitar. "Uncle Michael, let's play hide-and-seek?" John asked. "Sure. But you know I always find you, right?" The children ran off, looking for places to hide in the small park in front of the church. Michael and Isabel were alone for the first time that afternoon. "You're amazing with them," she said. "They saved me, you know," Michael replied, watching the children hide behind the trees. "When I got here, I was lost. I saw no meaning in anything. They were the ones who reminded me that there was still goodness in the world. And now," Michael looked into her eyes, now I have other reasons too." Isabel's heart began to beat faster. "Michael, I know it's crazy," he said, moving a little closer. "I know it doesn't make sense, but ever since you showed up here, I feel like I'm waking up from a long nightmare." "I feel the same way," she whispered. They were very close now. Isabel could feel his scent. It wasn't expensive cologne, but the clean smell of soap and the subtle aroma of cedar from the guitar. It was more attractive than any imported perfume the men in her social circle used. "Isabel," Michael said, his voice husky, "I don't want to hurt you. Your life is very different from mine." "My life was empty before you," she replied, raising her hand to lightly touch his face. Michael's skin was rough, marked by time and hardship, but warm and real beneath her fingers. He closed his eyes as he felt her touch, as if that simple gesture was a miracle. "Are you sure?" he asked, covering her hand with his. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." Michael leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. But Isabel didn't pull away. When their lips touched, it was as if the whole world stopped for a moment. The kiss was soft, careful, laden with a tenderness neither of them had experienced in a long time. It wasn't a kiss of wild passion, but of recognition, two souls finding each other after a long, lonely journey. When they separated, both their eyes were shining. "Found you!" Peter shouted, appearing from behind a tree. Isabel and Michael quickly moved apart, but couldn't hide their smiles. "Uncle Michael is happy," Lucy observed, with the innocent wisdom of children. "I am," he replied, looking at Isabel. "Very happy." The rest of the afternoon passed like a dream. They played with the children, talked, laughed. Michael told stories about his time as a teacher. Isabel talked about her watercolors. When the children left, each to their corners of the city, they were alone again. "I need to tell you something," Michael said, suddenly serious. "What?" "My family. They think I died. After Clara passed away, I just disappeared. I didn't answer calls. I didn't go home. I let them think the worst." Isabel held his hand. "Why?" "Because I was so ashamed. Ashamed of not being able to save her. Ashamed of having completely fallen apart. Ashamed of not being the strong man everyone expected me to be." "Michael," she began, but he interrupted her. 3 weeks ago, my younger brother David found me. He's been looking for me since I disappeared. He said my parents are heartbroken, that they think they lost me too. And what are you going to do?" Michael sighed deeply. "I don't know. How do I go back after 3 years? How do I explain that I chose to live on the streets instead of facing the pain? How do I ask for forgiveness for abandoning everyone?" Isabel squeezed his hand tighter. "Sometimes you need to get completely lost to find yourself again." "Do you really think so?" "I do, and I also think that those who love you will understand." They were silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of that revelation. "Isabel," Michael said finally, "if I decide to go back, if I try to rebuild my life, would you be willing to be a part of it?" "Michael," she replied, looking into his blue eyes, "I would be willing to rebuild my entire life if it meant being by your side. Can two people truly start over together? Have you ever had to choose between what was expected of you and what you really wanted? Comment what city you're watching us from and get ready. In the next chapter, a devastating fight will separate our protagonists. But does destiny have other plans? Isabel arrived home that night with her heart still racing from Michael's kiss. Her mother was waiting for her in the penthouse living room with a worried expression on her face. "Honey, where have you been? You've been going out every day for a week, and you won't tell me where you're going." "Mom, I'm an adult. I can go out without giving explanations," Isabel replied, trying to walk past. "Isabel, sit here," Christina said, gesturing to the sofa. "I need to talk to you." Reluctantly, Isabel sat down. Her mother watched her for a moment before speaking. "Richard called today. He said you've been avoiding your meetings with him. Honey, you know he's a good match. His family's businesses could complement ours. Mom, I don't love Richard. Love. Christina sighed. Honey, love is something you build. Compatibility, mutual respect, stable financial situation. These are the foundations of a good marriage. What about happiness? Doesn't that count? Happiness is a luxury, Isabel. What matters is security. Isabel felt a rebellion grow in her chest. Security? Mom, I'm 20 years old, and I've never felt more insecure in my life. I don't know who I am, what I want, what my purpose is. How can I get married? Like this? Your purpose is to continue the family legacy. It's to marry well and have children who will continue our businesses. What if I want something different? Christina looked at her with a severe expression. Like what? Isabel took a deep breath. It was time to be brave. Like falling in love with someone real. Someone who sees me as a person, not as an extension of my family's business. Isabel, have you met someone? Before she could answer, the phone rang. Christina answered, and Isabel took the opportunity to go up to her room. The next day she arrived earlier at St. Andrew's Church. Michael was alone, tuning his guitar. When he saw her, his face lit up. You're early today, he said, standing up to greet her. I wanted to talk to you before the children arrived, she replied. Has something happened? Isabel told him about the conversation with her mother, about the pressures to marry Richard, about how lost she felt between her family's expectations and her own desires. Michael, she said, taking his hands, I want you to know that no matter what happens, I will fight for us. Isabel? No, she interrupted him. Let me finish. I know it won't be easy. I know my family will resist, but for the first time in my life, I feel like I've found something worth fighting for. Michael kissed her softly. I'll fight too, he said. In fact, I've made a decision. I'm going to look for my brother David. I'm going to try to go home. Are you sure? I am. You made me realize that I can't run forever. And if we're going to be together, I first need to reconcile with my past. At that moment, they heard approaching footsteps. They expected to see the children, but instead, they saw a young man, about 25, with light brown hair and blue eyes, very similar to Michael's. Michael, the man said, his voice trembling. Michael went pale. David? My God, it's really you, David said, running to hug his brother. The reunion was intense and emotional. David cried, Michael cried, and Isabel felt as if she was witnessing a miracle. How did you find me? Michael asked. I never stopped looking, David replied. I heard from some people that there was a man who played guitar near the church. The description matched you. Dave, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for disappearing, for making you worry. We understand, brother. We know how much you loved Clara, but we couldn't lose you too. It was then that David noticed Isabel, who had discreetly stepped away to give the brothers privacy. Sorry, David said. I didn't realize you weren't alone. David, this is Isabel, Michael said, extending his hand to her. Isabel, this is my younger brother David. Nice to meet you, Isabel said, shaking David's hand. The pleasure is mine, he replied, but there was something strange in his expression. Sorry, but aren't you Isabel Miller? Isabel was surprised. You know me. I know your family. I work in marketing, and we've had some meetings with your company. In fact, I think I met you at a launch party about 2 years ago. Michael looked from one to the other, confused. You know each other? Not exactly, David said, but I know the reputation of the Miller family. They're, well, influential people. There was something in David's tone that made Isabel uncomfortable. Dave, Michael said, Isabel is special to me. David forced a smile. Of course, I imagine so. The atmosphere became tense. Isabel realized there was something David wasn't saying. Michael, she said, I think I should go and let you two talk. You don't have to, Michael said, but she was already walking away. We'll talk later, she said, quickly kissing him on the cheek before leaving. When Isabel was gone, David looked seriously at his brother. "Michael, do you know who that woman is?" "I know she's the woman I'm in love with," Michael replied, defensive. "She's the heiress to one of the largest fashion empires in the country. Her family has political connections, influence, money, and you've been living on the street for 3 years. So what? So what is that people like her don't mix with people like us? Not for real." Michael felt anger rise in his chest. "You don't know Isabel." "No, but I know her world. I've worked in marketing for companies like hers. I know how those people think. To them, we're disposable. Isabel isn't like that." "Michael," David said, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder, "I know you're vulnerable. I know you've been through a lot of trauma, but don't delude yourself. This woman is having fun with you. Soon she'll get tired and go back to her world." "You're wrong," Michael said, but a seed of doubt had been planted. "Am I? Then tell me, has she introduced you to her family? Have you gone out together in public places where she could be seen with you?" Michael remained silent. David continued, "She's playing at being rebellious, Michael. But when her family pressures her, when her friends find out, she'll abandon you, and you'll suffer even more." "Stop," Michael said, his voice tense. "I just want to protect you, brother. You've suffered enough." Michael looked at the spot where Isabel had disappeared minutes earlier. David's words echoed in his mind, mixing with his own insecurities. Was David right? Was Isabel just having fun with him? Have you ever doubted true love because of other people's opinions? Comment what city you're watching us from. And get ready. In the next chapter, a devastating fight will separate our protagonists, but does destiny have other plans? Isabel spent the entire night sleepless. There was something in David's gaze that bothered her, a mix of distrust and pity, as if she were an intruder in their family moment. The next morning, she decided to go to St. Andrew's Church later. She wanted to give Michael and David time to talk freely. But when she arrived around 3 in the afternoon, she found only Michael sitting alone on the steps with a gloomy expression. "Hi," she said, approaching carefully. "Where's David?" "He left," Michael replied, without looking at her. "And the children?" "They didn't come today either." Isabel sat beside him, feeling that something was very wrong. "Michael, what happened?" He finally looked at her, and she saw pain in his blue eyes. "Isabel, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest." "With me?" "Of course. What are you doing here? What do you want with me?" The question caught her by surprise. "What do you mean?" "You're rich, Isabel. Very rich. Your world is completely different from mine. Why would you be interested in a man who lives on the streets?" Isabel felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. "Michael, where is this coming from?" "Answer the question," he said, his voice harsher than she had ever heard it. I was interested in you because you're real. Because when I'm with you, I feel alive for the first time, because you see me as a person, not as an extension of my family's fortune." "And your parents? Do they know about me?" Isabel hesitated. "Not exactly." "Not exactly," Michael repeated bitterly. "Of course they don't know, because you're ashamed of me." "That's not it," she exclaimed, desperate. "Michael, it's just complicated. My family is conservative. They wouldn't understand." "Ah, so that's it. I'm your dirty little secret." "Michael, stop. You're twisting everything." He stood up abruptly. "Am I? Then take me to meet your parents. Now. I need time to prepare them." "Time for what? To invent a better version of me? To transform me into someone they can accept?" Isabel also stood up, tears starting to stream down her face. "Michael, please, you're being unfair. I love you." "Love?" He laughed humorlessly. "You love the idea of me. You love feeling brave and rebellious for being with me. But real love, love that overcomes any obstacle, you don't have that." "How can you say that?" she sobbed, "after everything we've shared?" "Because it's the truth," he shouted. You're like everyone else in your world. You play with people's feelings until you get tired, then you go back to your perfect life. That's not true, and you know it. Do I? Then prove it. Go home now and tell your parents about me. Tell them you fell in love with a homeless man. I won't do that under pressure. Not like this. Of course you won't, Michael said, picking up his guitar, because deep down you know I'm right. Michael, wait, she pleaded, trying to hold him by the arm. He pulled away from her touch as if burned. No, Isabel, this is over. Go back to your world and leave me in mine. I won't give up on us. There is no us, he said, his eyes hard as stone. There never was. It was all a fantasy. Michael walked away, leaving Isabel alone on the church steps, crying as if the world had ended. 3 days passed. Isabel returned to St. Andrew's Church every day, but Michael didn't show up. The children didn't either. It was as if everyone had disappeared from her life. On Wednesday, desperate, she decided to look for David. She got the address of the marketing agency, where he worked through contacts from her family's company. "Isabel?" he answered, surprised to see her at his office reception. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you about Michael." They talked. In an empty meeting room, Isabel told him about the fight, about how Michael had completely changed after his conversation with him. "What did you say to him?" she asked. David sighed. "The truth." "What truth?" "That you two are from different worlds. That sooner or later you would hurt him." "But that's not true," she exclaimed. "I love your brother." "Do you really? Then why hasn't he met your family? Why do you always meet in secret?" Isabel was speechless for a moment. Because I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of their reaction, scared that they wouldn't understand, scared that they would force me to choose." "And if they forced you, what would you choose?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Isabel realized with horror that she didn't know the answer. "You see," David said more gently. "Isabel, you seem like a good person, but Michael has suffered enough. He loved a woman with all his soul and lost her. I can't let him go through that again, but I won't abandon him. Won't you? What if your parents threaten to disinherit you? What if they cut off your access to money? What if they say you have to choose between your family and him?" Again, Isabel didn't know what to answer. "Michael needs to heal," David said. "He needs to go home, rebuild his life, find his way, and you need to find out who you really are, regardless of your family." "Where is he?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "He's home, with our parents. Where he always should have been." Can I see him?" David shook his head. "He doesn't want to see you. He asked me to tell you that if you showed up." Isabel felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "David, please." "Isabel," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "If you really love my brother, leave him alone. Let him heal and rebuild his life. If you were meant to be together, destiny will find a way to bring you back together." That night, Isabel arrived, home completely devastated. Her mother found her crying in the kitchen. "Honey, what happened?" For the first time in her life, Isabel told her mother everything. About Michael, about how she had fallen in love, about the fight, about how lost and empty she felt. Christina listened in silence. When Isabel finished, she held her daughter's hands. "Honey," she said, "you're suffering because you fell in love with a fantasy." "It wasn't a fantasy, Mom. It was real. What you felt was real. But the relationship, a princess and a pauper, that only exists in fairy tales. Why can't it exist in real life? Because real life has bills to pay, responsibilities, social pressures. Love alone doesn't sustain a relationship." Isabel looked at her mother with a mixture of anger and disillusionment. "So you never loved Dad?" "I did, but I also respected our social differences. Your father and I came from the same world, had the same opportunities. That's what worked. What if you were from different worlds?" Christina sighed. "Then one of us would have to give up who they were to be with the other, and that never ends well." Is true love really not enough to overcome differences? Have you ever had to choose between love and family expectations? Leave your likes and comment what city you're watching us from, and prepare for the grand finale, because sometimes, when all seems lost, destiny has the biggest surprise of all in store. 2 months passed since the fight between Isabel and Michael. 2 months of pain, reflection, and growth for both. Isabel had made a decision that shocked her entire family. She announced that she wanted to temporarily leave the family business to dedicate herself to a personal project. Against all her mother's protests and her father's incredulity, she used part of her inheritance to create an NGO for homeless children. Hope House was the name she chose. The project offered music, literature, art classes, and psychological support for underprivileged children and teenagers. Isabel worked tirelessly to bring the idea to life, driven by a passion she had never felt before. Meanwhile, Michael had returned to his parents' home in San Diego. The reunion was painful but necessary. He spent weeks talking to a psychologist, working through the guilt he felt about Clara's death and the way he had abandoned his family. Slowly, he began to rebuild his life. He returned to teaching, this time at a community school that served children from low-income families. He discovered that his experience on the streets had given him a unique understanding of the social problems his students faced. On a cold September morning, Isabel was at the Hope House headquarters, a small rented townhouse in Long Beach, when she heard familiar voices outside. "Aunt Isabel! Aunt Isabel!" She ran to the window and couldn't believe what she saw. Lucy, John, and Peter were on the sidewalk, accompanied by a woman who appeared to be a social worker. Isabel ran down the stairs and opened the door. "Kids, I missed you so much," she exclaimed, hugging each of them. "Auntie, we looked for you for a long time," John said. "Ms. Carmen said you had a house for kids like us." The social worker approached. "Are you the Isabel who created this project?" "That's me. My name is Carmen. These children talked so much about you that I decided to bring them to see the work. They said you and a music teacher took care of them." Isabel's heart ached at the mention of Michael. "Yes, a teacher, but he's no longer with us." "Auntie," Lucy said, pulling her skirt, "did you fight with Uncle Michael?" Isabel knelt to be at the girl's height. "It's complicated, sweetie. We miss him a lot," Peter said. "He was teaching us to read better." "He went back to his family," Isabel explained. "He's fine. He's happy." "But we wanted them both together," John murmured. Carmen observed the interaction with interest. "May I see the facilities?" Isabel proudly showed every corner of Hope House. There was a classroom, a small but well-equipped library, a basic music studio, and a space for artistic activities. "Impressive," Carmen said. "Did you do all this yourself?" "With the help of many good people," Isabel replied. "But yes, it was a personal project." "And the music teacher the children mentioned?" Isabel hesitated. He inspired me to create this place, but we're no longer part of each other's lives." That afternoon, after Carmen and the children left, Isabel was left alone at Hope House. She looked around and realized that, despite having achieved a dream, something was still missing. She picked up the phone and called David. "Isabel?" he answered, surprised. "Hi, David. I know it's strange for me to call, but how's Michael?" There was a pause. "He's good. He's back teaching." "That's good. I'm happy to hear that." "Isabel, why are you calling?" "Because I created something I know he would love, and because I still miss him every day." "Isabel." "No, let me talk," she interrupted him. "These 2 months have made me grow a lot. You were right when you said I didn't know who I was. But now I do. I know I'm someone who wants to make a difference. I know I'm brave enough to give up privileges in favor of my values. And I know I truly love your brother." "And your family?" "My family is learning to accept me as I am. It hasn't been easy, but we're getting there. My mom even came to see the NGO last week." David was silent for a moment. "David," Isabel continued, "I know you have reasons not to trust me, but I've changed. And if Michael wants to give me a second chance, I swear I won't waste it." "Isabel," David said finally, "Michael has changed too. He's stronger, more self-assured, but he still talks about you. He does. Sometimes when he's playing guitar, he plays that song he was singing the day you met. And when we ask about you, he says, he hopes you're happy." Tears began to stream down Isabel's face. "Where is he now?" she asked. "Isabel." "David, please. I need to see him. I need to tell him I'm sorry. I need to show him who I've become." David sighed. "He teaches at the Hope Community School in San Diego, Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 2 to 5 in the afternoon." "Thank you," she whispered. The following Thursday, Isabel took a bus to San Diego. She didn't want to drive. She wanted to arrive in the simplest way possible. The Hope Community School was a small, modest but well-maintained building. Isabel arrived at 4 in the afternoon and waited outside, nervous. When the bell rang, the children began to leave, and then she saw him. Michael appeared at the door, talking animatedly with some students. He was different, healthier, more well-groomed, but still with those intense blue eyes she loved so much. When he saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. The students noticed the tension and discreetly moved away. Michael and Isabel were left alone on the sidewalk, looking at each other in silence. "Hi," she said finally. "Hi," he replied. "You look good," she observed. "You look great." "Thanks. You're different too." "Different how?" Michael observed her intently. "More confident, more yourself." They were silent for a few moments. "Michael," Isabel said, summoning courage, "I came to apologize." "Isabel." "No, let me talk. You were right. I was scared. Scared to confront my family, scared to publicly acknowledge our relationship, scared to fight for us. But I wasn't playing with you. Never." Michael listened in silence. "These 2 months changed my life," she continued. "I created an NGO for homeless children. I confronted my family. I discovered who I really am. And I discovered that none of it is worth it if I can't share it with you." "Isabel," he began, but she interrupted him again. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve a second chance. But if you give me this opportunity, I swear I will spend the rest of my life proving that my love for you is real." Michael took a deep breath. "You said you created an NGO?" "Hope House, for underprivileged children. I teach art classes. We have music, literature. Everything you taught me was important." "And your family?" "They're learning to accept me. It wasn't easy, but we're making progress. My mom even helped me get some donations." Michael looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Isabel," he said finally, "when you left, I thought my world had ended again. I'm sorry, but then I realized you had given me a gift." "What gift?" "You reminded me that I was still capable of loving. After Clara, I thought that part of me had died, but you proved it hadn't." Tears streamed down both their faces. "Michael," she whispered, "is there still a chance for us?" He approached slowly, raising his hand to touch her face. "Isabel," he said, "I never stopped loving you." And then they kissed. It wasn't like the first kiss. This one was full of forgiveness, of second chances, of promises for the future. When they separated, Michael smiled. That smile that had won her heart the first day. "Want to meet my students?" he asked. "I'd love to," she replied. 6 months later, Hope House had grown significantly. Michael had moved to Los Angeles and become the project's pedagogical coordinator. Together they created a program that served over 100 children and teenagers. Isabel's family took time to accept Michael, but his dedication to social work and his genuine kindness eventually won over even Christina. "You know," Christina said to her daughter one afternoon, watching Michael teach guitar to a group of children, "I think I was wrong about him." "What do you mean, Mom?" I thought he wasn't on our level, but in fact he's far above us. He taught my daughter to be a better person." Isabel smiled, watching the man she loved share his passion for music with the children. At the end of that day, as they were closing Hope House, Michael picked up his guitar and began to play the same song he had sung the night they met. "Do you still remember the lyrics?" he asked. "How could I forget?" Isabel replied, sitting beside him. Together they sang, "Oh, how I wish I had the strength of the wind to blow away all this pain. But I discovered that true love is much stronger than any pain." Lucy, John, and Peter, who now regularly attended Hope House, applauded from the doorway. "Uncle Michael and Aunt Isabel!" Lucy shouted, running to hug them. "Now you're going to be together forever!" Michael and Isabel looked at each other and smiled. "Forever," Michael said. "Forever," Isabel confirmed. And for the first time in their lives, both knew they had found not only love, but also their true purpose. A purpose they could share together, creating hope where before there had only been despair. Love had won, and they had found their own version of happily ever after. 2 years later, the December sun shone brightly on the new Hope House headquarters, a 3-story building in the heart of town Venice Beach, that now served over 300 children and teenagers in vulnerable social situations. Isabel Miller Smith, yes, she had adopted her husband's last name, watched from her office window the activity in the inner courtyard, where dozens of children played during recess. 2 years since she and Michael had reunited and decided to build a life together. 2 years that seemed like an eternity, and at the same time as if they had passed in the blink of an eye. "Director Isabel," a familiar childish voice said behind her. Isabel turned and smiled to see Lucy, now 10 years old, with her brown hair tied in 2 braids and wearing the light blue Hope House uniform. The girl who once lived on the streets was now one of the project's brightest students, excelling especially in literature. "E-classes. Hi, sweetie," Isabel said, opening her arms to hug the girl. "What are you doing here in the office? Shouldn't you be in math class with Ms. Carlson?" "I should," Lucy said with a mischievous smile, "but Professor Michael told me to come get you. He said it's urgent." Isabel frowned, worried. "Urgent? Has something happened?" "I don't know," Lucy said, shrugging. "He just said to go to the auditorium and that it was a surprise." Intrigued, Isabel followed Lucy through the corridors of Hope House. The building was a source of pride for her. Walls painted with vibrant colors, murals made by the children themselves, well-equipped classrooms, a small but well-stocked library, a professional music studio, a computer lab, a spacious cafeteria, and even a small theater where the children performed plays and musical shows. When they reached the auditorium door, Lucy stopped. "You can go in alone," the girl said, running back to class. Isabel pushed the heavy door and entered the auditorium. The lights were off, except for a spotlight illuminating the stage. There was Michael, sitting on a stool with his guitar on his lap, the same worn instrument she had seen on the first day they met. "Michael!" she called, walking down the central aisle between the empty chairs. "Lucy said it was urgent. Is everything okay?" He smiled, that smile that still made her heart race. "Everything's perfect. Sit here in the front row." "Why all this theatrics?" she asked, but obeyed, sitting in the indicated chair. "Because today is a special day," Michael said, beginning to softly strum the guitar strings. "Special how?" "It's exactly 2 years since we reunited at that school in San Diego. 2 years that you gave me a second chance. 2 years that completely changed my life." Isabel felt her eyes well up with tears. "Michael, let me finish," he said, beginning to play a sweet and familiar melody. "These 2 years have been the best of my life. Not only because I found love again, but because I found my purpose alongside the person I love most." He began to sing, his deep, melodious voice echoing through the empty auditorium. "2 years ago I was lost, aimless and without direction, until an angel appeared and brought light to my heart. Isabel, my love, my companion, my best friend, you taught me that true love is what gives meaning to life. Isabel was openly crying now. Michael stopped playing and stood up, walking towards her. "Isabel Miller Smith," he said, kneeling before the chair where she was sitting and taking a small blue velvet box from his pocket. "Will you marry me? Again?" "What do you mean, again?" she asked, laughing through her tears. "The first time was at the courthouse, just with witnesses. Simple, quick, no party, but you deserve more than that. You deserve a celebration worthy of our love." Isabel looked at the box he opened, revealing a simple but elegant engagement ring with a small but perfect solitaire diamond. "Michael Smith," she said, holding his face in her hands, "I would marry you 1,000 times if I had to. Yes, I accept to marry you again." He slid the ring onto her finger, on her right hand, since on her left she already wore the simple wedding band they had bought 2 years earlier. "There's one more thing," Michael said, standing up and extending his hand to her. "Come with me." They left the auditorium, and Michael guided her to the main courtyard of Hope House. When the doors opened, Isabel almost fainted from surprise. Over 200 people were gathered there, all the children and teenagers from Hope House, the staff, the volunteers, David and the entire Smith family, Christina and Albert Miller, Isabel's parents, and even some of the business people who supported the project. "Surprise!" everyone shouted in unison. "My God!" exclaimed Isabel, covering her mouth with her hands. "You planned all this?" "Aunt Isabel!" John shouted, now 12 years old and almost her height. "We helped organize everything. It was Uncle Michael's idea." Peter, 11 years old, held a banner that read, "Happy Engagement, Isabel and Michael forever." Carmen, the social worker who had brought the children to Hope House, approached with shining eyes. "Isabel, dear," she said, hugging her warmly. "What a wonderful surprise. Michael told me about the plans 3 weeks ago. All the children were eager to participate." "Honey," Christina said, approaching, with a radiant smile, "I'm so happy for you two." The relationship between Isabel and her mother had completely transformed in the last 2 years. Christina had not only accepted Michael, but had become one of Hope House's biggest supporters, using her contacts to secure donations and sponsorships. "Mom," Isabel said, hugging her, "you knew all about this?" "Of course I knew. Michael asked for our blessing for the official proposal a month ago. Your father and I were touched." Albert Miller, a 55-year-old man with graying hair and kind eyes, approached and hugged his daughter. "Princess," he said, "I've never seen you as happy as you've been these past 2 years. Michael is a lucky man to have you, but you are also a lucky woman to have found someone who loves you as you deserve." "Dad," Isabel murmured, emotional. "Ms. Isabel, Ms. Isabel," shouted a 7-year-old girl named Emma, pulling on Isabel's floral dress. "When's the wedding? Can we go?" "Of course you can go," Isabel said, kneeling to be at the girl's height. "You're our family." "Really?" asked a 9-year-old boy named Gabriel. "Really," Michael confirmed, approaching the group. "In fact, we have a proposal to make to you all." "What proposal?" several children asked at the same time. "How about you all be our bridesmaids and groomsmen?" Isabel said. "All of you." The children's shout of joy echoed throughout the courtyard. They jumped, clapped, and hugged, celebrating as if they had won the greatest gift in the world. "Uncle Michael," Lucy said, pulling his shirt, "can I ask a question?" "Of course, sweetie." "Are you going to have babies?" The innocent question made all the adults laugh. Isabel and Michael exchanged glances, a little embarrassed. "Why do you ask, Lucy?" Isabel asked. "Because I wanted siblings," the girl said simply. "You two are like our parents here at Hope House. If you had babies, we'd help take care of them." Michael picked Lucy up. "You know, Lucy, we already have over 300 children, you all. But it's not the same, the girl insisted. A baby would be special. All of you are special, Isabel said, emotional. But, well, who knows what the future holds, right? The impromptu party extended throughout the afternoon. There were cupcakes, brownies, hot dogs, and a soda for everyone. The older children organized musical performances, and Michael played guitar while everyone sang. As the sun began to set, the children gradually left, some for adoptive homes, others for families who had regained the means to care for them, and a few for the partner shelters of Hope House. Isabel and Michael were left alone in the courtyard, sitting on the bench under the California sycamore tree they had planted in the first year of the new headquarters operation. "I can't believe you organized all this," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. "Did you like it?" "Loved it. But you didn't have to do that. I was already your wife." "I know," Michael said, kissing the top of her head, "but you deserved a marriage proposal like all other women have, with a ring, a surprise, family gathered, everything you never had." "Michael Smith," she said, raising her head to look him in the eyes. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "I was the lucky one," he replied. "You brought me back to life." They were silent for a few minutes, listening to the soft sounds of the city at night and the quiet breathing of Eleanor in the next room. "Michael," Isabel said finally. "I was thinking about what Lucy said, about babies." Michael perked up, paying full attention. And, well, I'm 22. You're 35. Hope House is running perfectly. Our relationship is solid." "Isabel," Michael said, his heart racing, "are you saying that—" "I'm saying that maybe it's time for us to think about expanding our family in a more traditional way." Michael kissed her passionately. "Are you—" "Sure, I am. I want to hold a child of ours. I want to see you teach our baby to play guitar. I want the children here to have another little brother or sister to love. What if it's difficult? What if it takes a long time? What if—" Isabel placed a finger on his lips. "What if everything works out? What if we're blessed with a beautiful family? What if our child grows up here, playing with these children, learning the value of solidarity from an early age?" Michael smiled, imagining the scene. "That would be beautiful. It would be perfect." 6 months later, Hope House was once again the scene of a celebration. This time the renewed wedding of Isabel and Michael, in a beautiful ceremony held in the institution's own courtyard, decorated with wildflowers and LED lights. Isabel wore a simple white lace dress made by a seamstress from the community. Michael was elegant in a navy blue suit he had received as a gift from his parents. The 300 children of Hope House, all dressed in light blue and white, formed the most beautiful procession Los Angeles had ever seen. "Do you take Michael Smith as your husband, to love him in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty, all the days of your life?" the justice of the peace asked. "I do," Isabel said, her voice firm and her eyes shining. "And you, Michael Smith, do you take Isabel Miller as your wife, to love her in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty all the days of your life?" "I do," Michael replied, holding her hands firmly. "Then by the powers vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." The kiss was accompanied by the shouts of joy of 300 children, the emotional applause of the guests, and the shower of rose petals that the older girls threw over the couple. "Now you're really married," John shouted, now 13 years old and almost Michael's height. "We were already married, John," Isabel said, laughing, "but now it's with a party." Peter, 12 years old, added. The party lasted late into the night. There was dinner for all the guests, dancing in the courtyard under the stars, and a lot of music. Michael played several songs on the guitar, including the one he had sung the night they met. When the party finally ended and everyone left, Isabel and Michael sat on the bench under the California sycamore tree, exhausted but happy. "Mrs. Smith," Michael said, playing. with the new white gold wedding band on her finger. "Mr. Smith," she replied, smiling, "how do you feel being officially my wife? Like I'm finally home." A year and a half later, the Hope House courtyard was once again the scene of a celebration. This time, the first birthday of Helena Smith, Isabel and Michael's daughter. The baby, with light brown hair and intense blue eyes like her parents, was sitting on Isabel's lap, clapping her hands as the children of Hope House sang, "Happy Birthday, Princess Helena!" Lucy shouted, now 12 years old and one of the girls' official babysitters. "You're the most beautiful baby in the world." Helena smiled, showing 2 recently sprouted teeth, and extended her little arms to Lucy. "She wants Lucy to hold her," Isabel said, passing her daughter to the girl who had become like an older sister. "Aunt Isabel," said Emma, now 9 years old, "will Helena study here at Hope House when she grows up?" "Of course she will," Michael replied, approaching the group. "Helena will grow up here playing with you, learning from you. And when she grows up, will she help take care of other children like we helped take care of her?" asked Gabriel, 11 years old. "If she wants to," Isabel said, "but that will be her choice." "I think she will," John said, now 14 years old and one of the natural leaders among the older children. "Because she'll grow up seeing how much love there is here." Christina Miller, who was observing the scene from afar, approached with teary eyes. "Honey," she said, "looking at you two here, surrounded by all these children, with Helena in your arms, this is the most beautiful family I've ever seen." "Thank you, Mom," Isabel said, "for supporting me, for understanding." "I should be thanking you," Christina replied. "You taught me what truly matters in life." Albert Miller joined the group, carrying a small guitar, the perfect size for a child. "This is for Helena," he said, handing the instrument to Michael. "For when she's old enough." "Dad," Isabel murmured, emotional. "I want my granddaughter to learn music from an early age," Albert said, "just like her father taught so many other children." Michael examined the guitar. It was of excellent quality, with the name Helena discreetly engraved on the side. "Thank you, Albert," he said. "She'll love it." "Uncle Michael," Peter said, "can you play a song for Helena?" "Of course," Michael said, picking up his own guitar. "What song do you want?" "The song you sang when you were sad," Lucy said. "But now change the lyrics to talk about happy things." Michael smiled and began to play. But this time the lyrics were completely different. "Oh, how I wish I had the strength of the wind to spread love wherever I go. Today I know I've found my way, by the side of the one who taught me what love is. Helena, my daughter, my princess, you are proof that dreams come true. With your mother and all these children, you are everything I ever wanted in life." All the children sang along to the chorus, their voices blending in an imperfect but emotional harmony. When the music ended, Helena clapped her hands and said her first clear word, "Daddy." Silence fell over the courtyard for a moment before erupting in shouts of joy. "She spoke!" Lucy shouted. "Helena said Daddy." Michael's eyes were full of tears. "Did you hear that, my love?" he said to Isabel. "Our daughter called me Daddy. And you're the best daddy in the world," Isabel replied, kissing him gently. "For all of us," Lucy added, speaking for all the children at Hope House. That night, after everyone had left and Helena was sleeping in her crib, Isabel and Michael sat on the porch of their small house, built behind Hope House, so they could always be close to the children. "Michael," Isabel said, resting her head on his shoulder, "are you happy?" "Happy," he chuckled softly. "Isabel, I didn't even know it was possible to be this happy. 5 years ago, I was living on the streets, thinking my life was over. Today, I have the most incredible woman in the world as my wife, a beautiful daughter, over 300 children who consider me their father, a job that completely fulfills me, and the certainty that everything I went through, all the pain, all the loss, was worth it to bring me here." even the pain of losing Clara? Michael was thoughtful for a moment. You know, I'll always love Clara. She was my first love, my first wife, but I've learned that the heart has an infinite capacity to love. Loving you doesn't diminish the love I felt for her, and I'm sure that, wherever she is, she's happy to see me like this. Do you think so? I'm sure. Clara always wanted me to be happy. And more than that, she always dreamed of having children and helping underprivileged kids. In a way, through you, through Helena, through Hope House, her dream also came true. Isabel held his hand. I love the way you honor her memory. It makes me love you even more. And I love how you were never jealous of a love that came before you. That shows the size of your heart. They were silent for a few minutes, listening to the soft sounds of the city at night and Helena's quiet breathing in the next room. Michael, Isabel said finally. I was thinking about what Lucy said, about babies. Michael turned to look at her, surprised. Seriously? Seriously, Helena needs a sibling to play with, and these 300 children deserve a few more blood siblings. Isabel Smith, Michael said, kissing her passionately. Do you want to turn our house into a nursery? I want to turn our house into the most loving place in the world, she replied. Then let's get to work on that, he said, lifting her into his arms and carrying her into the house. And so, under the stars of Los Angeles, surrounded by the love of hundreds of children and with a daughter sleeping peacefully, in the next room, Isabel and Michael continued to build their family, a family that had been born from the most improbable love, blossomed through adversity, and grown to touch the lives of hundreds of people. What had begun as a casual encounter between a lost heiress and a homeless teacher had transformed into the most beautiful love story Los Angeles had ever witnessed. And most importantly, it was just the beginning. And there you have it, folks. What a beautiful ending, wasn't it? 2 years later, and look how their love blossomed. Who among you was touched by Helena saying "Daddy" for the first time? The surprise wedding proposal in the auditorium. Seeing how the children of Hope House became one big family. Like this video, if this story of overcoming and true love touched your heart. And now I need to know. What city are you watching us from? Comment below. What was the part that touched your heart the most? Do you want to see more stories like this, full of emotion and happy endings? Don't forget, subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. Leave suggestions for new stories in the comments. Like, if this story moved you. And get your tissues ready, because the next story promises to be even more emotional. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of love.